Religion is to the Balinese both community and nationality. They live with their forefathers in a great family of the dead and the living. Rather than a sectarian system in the hands of a hierarchy of priests, the religion in Bali is a set of rules of behavior, a model of life. Motivated by this background of religious beliefs, the Balinese found it necessary to establish a communal cooperation to provide for the magnificent festivals that are such an important part of their life. The temple is certainly the most important institution on the island, and every temple celebrates its birthday, or Lalan, on the anniversary of its consecration with a great feast that constitutes the principal social event for the entire community, and in which everybody in the village takes part with equal enthusiasm. The decorations of the temple, build the temporary bamboo altars, erect awnings for entertainers, adorn the shrines with flags, pennants, and penniors, cook the food for the feast, and dress up the statues of the demons that guard the entrance. At the same time, the women prepare the offerings and make lamaks. The pemangku receive and bless the offerings that each woman brought. Such is the general pattern along which a temple feast moves. But again, each community has its own way of doing things, and no two feasts are carried out exactly in the same manner. The gong played all night the stately, ancient music, and as dawn approached, the old Burmanku moved around quietly, supervising things, putting out the lights and preparing for the final ceremony, the adoration of the rising sun. When Mendet was danced again by middle-aged women and offerings were dedicated in the direction of the first rays of sun that appeared in the horizon. This ended the feast, and by morning, when the essence of the offerings had been consumed by the gods, the women came to collect their respective offerings and take them home. Every Balinese believes that his body accumulates a magic energy called Sakti that enables him to withstand the attacks of evil powers, human or supernatural, that seek constantly to undermine his magic health. This Sakti is not evenly divided. Some people are born with a capacity to store a higher charge of magic than others. They become the priests, witch doctors, endowed with supernatural powers. The Sakti can be trained to serve them at will by the systematic study of the arts of magic and meditation. But people whose hearts are contaminated by evil use the magic science to harm their enemies, or simply to satisfy the lowest instincts. An explanation of the Balinese attitude in regard to personal magic can be found in a principle that constantly obsesses them: strong and weak, clean and unclean. Thus, the individual is magically strengthened when he is in the state of psychic purity, Ening, Suji, Nirmala, acquired through the performance of the cleansing ritual. The antithesis of this is the often mentioned Sebel condition, uncleanliness, when a run-down soul renders one vulnerable to the attacks of evil. Not even the deities are free from becoming Sebel, and like any other woman, Rangda and the death goddess Durga are Sebel once every month. The normal way to bring out the dormant Sakti is to undergo Mawinten, the initiation ceremony of priests, magicians, dancers and actors, to give them the luck, beauty, cleverness, and personal charm that enable them to be successful. is in a performance of the legend of Rangda that the Balinese theatre reaches the height of its magnificence. It combines the fine music and delicate dancing of the legong with the elaborate staging, the acting, singing, and comedy of the classic plays, besides the element of mystery and suspense. Rangda, Queen of the Layaks, and undoubtedly the most interesting character on the island, is the bloodthirsty, child-eating Rangda, the witch widow mistress of black magic. The witch has a contender for supremacy in a fantastic animal, a mythical lion called Barong. Because of an ancient feud with Rangda, he sides with human beings to thwart her evil plans. And the Balinese say that without his help, humanity would be destroyed. Rangda is the night, the darkness from which emanate illness and death. The Barong is the sun, the light, medicine, the antidote for evil. Barong began a long dance, staring around as if astounded by magic visions that filled the air. In the meantime, a group of half-naked men sitting on a mat went into trance. They were the assistants of the Barong against Rangda. With their eyes glued on the Rangda, they got up, drawing their krises, advancing like fidgety automatons towards the witch. She awaited them ready with her white cloth, her weapon, ready in her raised hand. She was caught by a group of strong men and led away, but not before she had put a spell on the entranced men by joining the thumbs of her outstretched hands and yelling a curse. By the spell, the krises in the hands of the men turned against them. But the magic of the Barong hardened their flesh so that, although they pushed the sharp points of the daggers with all their might against their naked chests, they were not even hurt. Some leaped wildly or rolled in the dust, pressing the krises against their breasts and crying like children, tears streaming from their eyes. Only by a complete trance can the dance be performed with impunity. Otherwise, a man will wound himself or hurt others. To take the men out of the trance, they were led, one by one, to where the Barong stood. Someone sucked the bleeding chest of the wounded man and stuck a red flower in the cut. And gradually, the hysterical men came out of the trance, dazed, simply walking away as if they did not know what had happened to them. Banespati Rajda, Lord of the Jungle, Jero Gede, the big one, rather than Barong, has won, and humanity will save the game. forces of evil defeated, the by now trusting crowd approached to join the groups of smiling youths, richly decorated with golden earrings, bracelets, and silver rings, and accompanied by the music of gongs, flutes, and drums. They marched to the square in order to watch the elderly and married women perform mendet dancing and make offerings of incense and food to thank the gods of the temple of Denpasar. In Denpasar, we had occasion to witness the great cremation of the old King Jerokuta, killed in the mass suicide of 1906. His body was burned then. Is only the shell, the container. That this procession be grand and luxurious, and all the relatives of the dead parade in it, dressed in the finest clothes obtainable, with brocades, gold flowers, jewelry, and jeweled krises much in evidence. Orchestras, Bali's dancers, and scores of boys carrying spears, banners, and flags, followed by long lines of women bearing offers. hullabaloo. Each tower is led to the cemetery by a long rope tied at one end to the platform where the corpses are fastened, the other held by the hands of relatives. A second party waits outside, ready to snatch the corpse from the first group, and a realistic free-for-all ensues. One group rushes against the other, yelling and booting like madmen until the attacking party runs off, knocking one another down, turning and whirling the body in all directions to confuse it so that it cannot find its way back to the house. The corpse is disrespectfully rough-handled all the way to the tower, carried up the bamboo runway and securely tied to the plank on the uppermost stage, the Ballet Baleano. At cremation ceremonies, hundreds of people in a wild stampede carry the beautiful towers, 60 feet high, solidly built of wood and bamboo and decorated with tinsel and expensive silks, in which the bodies are transported to the cremation grounds. There, the corpses are placed in great cows, hewn out of tree trunks to serve as coffins and covered with precious materials. And cows, towers, offerings and ornaments are set on fire. Hundreds and even thousands of dollars burned in one afternoon in a mad splurge of extravagance by a people who value the necessities of life in fractions and pennies. The greater towers in which the corpses are carried to the cremation ground, and the animal-shaped coffins in which they will be burned, the two most spectacular factors in a cremation, have waited ready for days in some corner of the village, covered with screens of woven palm leaf. The cremation tower is a high structure, solidly built of wood and bamboo, bound together with rattan and covered with colored paper ornaments and cotton wool dyed in bright colors, glittering with tinsel and small mirrors. Shaped like the temple gates and the sun altars, the tower represents again the Balinese conception of the cosmos, a wild beast, often in the shape of a turtle with two serpents entwined around its body, symbol of the foundation upon which the world rests, supporting three gradually receding platforms, the mountains, with bunches of paper flowers and leaves on the corner of each platform to represent the forests. The high priest is in a trance, performing the last maweda on a high platform. The elderly men drink palm wine from tall bamboo vessels, sitting in a boisterous group, and the daughters and wives of the dead men, who remain unemotionally quiet in the background. To the Balinese, only the soul is really important. unclean object to be got rid of, about which there is no hysteria. Between incarnations, and until the time comes for its return to this earth, the soul goes to Indra's heaven, the Swarga, a reservoir where life is just as it is in Bali, but devoid of all trouble and illness. But this process does not go on forever. When the individual has attained the highest wisdom and has reached the highest possession among men, he hopes to obtain liberation from the cycle of births and deaths and become a god. It is obvious that the Balinese are by no means a primitive people. Although we use the term to differentiate our own material civilization from the native cultures in which the daily life, society, arts and religion form a united whole that cannot be separated into its component parts without disrupting it. The cultures where spiritual values dictate the mode of living, especially at the happy and peaceful island of Bali. The Malay archipelago lies directly on the volcanic belt of the world. Like the backbone of some restless, formidable, antediluvian monster, more than 300 volcanoes rise from the sea in a great chain of islands, perhaps all that remains of a continent broken up in the prehistoric cataclysms, forming a continuous land bridge that links Asia with Australia. One of the smallest, but perhaps the most extraordinary, is the island of Bali, a cluster of high volcanoes, deeply furrowed by ravines, washed out by rising rivers full of rapids and waterfalls. It drops steadily to the sea without forming lowlands, just 8 degrees south of the equator. Bali has over 2,000 square miles of extravagantly fertile lands, most of which are beautifully cultivated. Like a continual undersea ballet, the pulse of life in Bali moves with a measured rhythm, reminiscent of the sway of marine plants and the flowing motion of octopi and jellyfish under the sweep of a submarine current. There is a similar correlation of the elegant and decorative people with the clear-cut, extravagant vegetation, of their simple and sensitive temperament with the fertile land. No other people give the impression of living in such close contact with nature. The slender Balinese bodies are as much a part of the landscape as the palms and the breadfruit trees, and their smooth skins have the same tone as the earth and the brown rivers where they bathe. The Balinese belong in their environment in the same way that a hummingbird or an orchid belongs in a Central American jungle. Their reputation for beauty is well justified. The majority of the population are handsome, with splendid physique and with a dignified elegance of bearing in both men and women of all ages. From childhood, the women walk for miles, carrying heavy loads on their heads. This gives them a great coordination of movement, a poised walk, and bodily fitness. Old women retain their strength and do not become bent hags. We were astonished at times to discover that the slender, straight silhouette we had admired from a distance belonged to an old lady with gray hair, walking with ease under 40 or 50 pounds of fruit. Their character is easy, courteous, and gentle, but they can be intense and can show strong temper if aroused. They are gay and witty. There is nothing that a Balinese loves more than a good joke. It is perhaps in their mad sense of humor, this spirit of revelation fun with which they handle even such forbidding subjects as religion and death, that the key to their character lies. Once, when I mentioned the goodness of a very short friend, the immediate reply was, "How could he be otherwise? He is so small." The pride of the Balinese has not permitted the development of one of the great professions of the East. There are no beggars in Bali, but this distinction is now being threatened by tourism. A gift must be reciprocated, and we were often embarrassed by the return presents of our poor neighbors. Children of the neighborhood that Rose had treated for infected wounds always came back with presents of fruit or rice, which they handed casually to our houseboy, never mentioning them to us, as if they had wanted to avoid making a demonstration of their generosity. Even children have a strong sense of pride. As in all countries near the equator, Bali has an eternal summer with even, warm weather, high humidity, and a regular variation of winds. But the unbearable heat of lands, similarly situated, is greatly relieved by sea breezes that blow constantly over the descending slopes of the four volcanoes that form the island. There are small settlements of fishermen who brave the malarial coast, but in general, fishing is done on a small scale in beautiful prows shaped like fantastic elephant fish, gajah mina, with elegant stylized trunks and eyes to see at night. Most Balinese seldom eat fish and remain essentially a rice-eating people. They are one of the rare island peoples in the world who turn their eyes not outward to the waters but upward to the mountain tops. According to the legend, the Balinese originally had only the juice of sugar cane as food. Out of pity for the human race, the male god of fertility and water, Vishnu, came to the earth in disguise to provide them with better food. He raped an unwilling Mother Earth to fertilize her and give birth to rice. Then Vishnu made war on Indra, the lord of the heavens, to induce him to teach men how to grow rice. Thus, as the principal source of life and as a gift from the gods, rice was born from the cosmic union of the divine male and female forces represented in earth and water. The Balinese are famed as the most efficient rice growers in the archipelago. They raise 2 crops of fine rice a year with such success that they have more than sufficient for the needs of the population, often having enough left over to sell or give away. Even agricultural experts admit that the modern methods could not improve the already excellent results, due perhaps to the intense striving of the Balinese for improvement, their communal cooperative agricultural societies, and their system of seed selection. The villages are organized into close-knit boards or councils. Every married man is a member of the council and is morally and physically obliged to cooperate for the welfare of the community. A man is eagerly assisted by the council as a matter of duty. Since the world of a Balinese is his community, he is anxious to prove his worth, for his own welfare is in direct relation to his social behavior and his communal standing. The most striking element of the Balinese landscape is the ever-present rice field, the sawa, a patch of land filled with water held by dikes cut out of the red earth. The receding terraces resemble green plains. When they are first filled with still water, they are like mosaics of mirrors that reflect the clouds. Later, they are sprinkled with the dainty blades of the newly planted rice in an all-over pattern of chartreuse on a ground of brown ooze. Eventually, a tender yellow-green carpet which turns to a rich gold ochre as the grain ripens. Ducks are driven in flocks to the rice fields, where they are fed on all sorts of small water animals. the small landowners could not carry out alone the tremendous task of attending to the work of irrigation. It became necessary for them to organize into subaks, agricultural cooperative societies, water boards that control the equitable distribution of water to their members. Like other Balinese associations, the spirit of the subak is essentially communal. All members abide by the same rules, each one being allotted work in relation to the amount of water he receives. At harvest time, every morning and every evening, one sees the people in the streets. Men going to work, nonchalantly beating rhythms on their agricultural implements, or returning from the fields overlaid with sheaves of rice heavy with rain. Poised women come and go with great loads of shiny black clay pots on their heads. If it happens to be market day in the village, at dawn, the roads are crowded with husky people from the nearby villages who come to sell their produce piles of coconuts, bananas, or vegetables, pottery, mats, baskets, and so forth, carrying on their heads even the table that serves as a stand. If there is a feast in the village temple, the people parade in yellow, green, and magenta silks with fantastic pyramids of fruit and flowers, offerings to the gods in a pageant that would have made Diaghilev turn green with envy.